Fireside, the best grilling shop in town. At Fireside, I think I'm gonna go on down.
Hi guys, this is Chris with Fireside Outdoor Kitchens, and today I want to walk you through my method for achieving the perfect holiday standing rib roast. I think that one of the hallmarks of a perfect prime rib is having that consistent color all the way through from edge to edge without a bullseye center of less doneness and overdone outer edges. And I've got a way for you to achieve that just about perfectly every single time. I know it's a tall statement, but stick with me and you'll get it. So we're going to use what is referred to commonly as the reverse sear technique to cook this piece of meat. And it is called the reverse sear technique because, you know, traditionally with steaks and things like that, what you do is you sear them up front when you first put them on the grill, and then you rest them at a lower temperature or off the grill to let that internal temperature even out. What we're going to do here is the exact opposite of that. We're going to do the low temperature portion, or the resting portion. We'll talk more about that word in a second, at the front end. And then at the very end, the last thing that we'll do is really put it in a high heat oven or grill and put a little crust on the outside. So two concepts that you need to understand when going into this cook are tempering and resting. Tempering is where you take a piece of meat and before you start cooking it, before you start applying cooking heat to it, you bring it to room temperature. This is going to give you the ability to jumpstart that cook and have it cook that much more evenly from the beginning. If you take this straight out of your fridge, this inside, this very deepest part of the muscle is going to be whatever your fridge temperature is, 38 degrees or so. If you leave this on the counter and allow it to come to room temperature, you just cooked it to room temperature, perfectly evenly, all at the same time. It's going to create a quicker cook and a much more even product with that similar color all the way through. So make sure that you're tempering this piece of meat. Now it's a large piece of meat. You may think, and I have read somewhere, several places, that you put it on the counter for a half hour, 45 minutes. I'm here to tell you that that is wrong, and a half hour or 45 minutes on the counter will not do a thing to change the internal temperature of this piece of meat. This guy's been sitting out for at least 12 hours and is getting closer to where I want it to be. So make sure you temper it for the appropriate amount of time. There are a number of different ways to get this cut ready for the grill. I like to do it in a way where it's a little bit more festively presented. You can just take this, season it, stick it on the grill as it is, and it'll be great. What I'll do though, however, and you can probably see it from your angle, is there's a bit of a fat deposit here, and then this nice loin. I'm going to come in with my knife and I'm going to cut right down this line, remove this part, stand it up and cut that section straight off, and then clean off the meat from these bones. It's a technique called Frenching the bones. I'm not going to get them super clean just because it doesn't matter all that much for my friends and family. If your friends and family are experts on Frenching bones, then by all means get those suckers clean, but it doesn't have to be all that clean. And then we're going to tie it up, which is going to help maintain a nice consistent shape throughout the cooking process. So why don't we go right ahead and jump in here. You can see you've got a nice guide here for where your knife wants to be, and I'm just going to take that cut and go straight down to the bone. And find that same spot on the back side. Take my knife all the way back. Okay, now don't get rid of this. There's a lot of good stuff you can do with this. There's some nice meat on there that you can trim out, and if you're like me, I like to make a little snack while I'm cooking. Saute this in some butter and cast iron skillet or something like that. Really, really good. The other thing that I'll keep this around for is the fat. One of my favorite accompaniments to standing rib roast for the holidays is Yorkshire pudding, which really has nothing to do with a dessert or a sweet custardy type pudding. It's more of a bread side dish that's made with beef fat. So I'll take this and cut it up into smaller pieces, render it, and use that for a really delicious side dish. So now that we've got this cut open, I'm just going to go in and use my knife butted up against the bone here as a guide and just start cleaning it off. These pieces of meat are another great thing to use as a little snack during your holiday cooking as you cut them out. It's essentially beef ribs, right? So don't throw all this stuff away. There's no reason to waste it. That's basically it. And again, from here you can go in and clean these bones up as much as you want. There's really no functional purpose to doing it. It's just a matter of presentation. So spend as much time doing this as you feel is appropriate for that. All right, I call that good. Okay, so now we're going to tie this up and pull off a nice long section of butcher twine. Grab more than you think. You don't want to run up short. And first thing I'll do is just start at the small end here and tie it off. And now, I'm going to bring it forward and all the way around and catch that spot where I brought it around first and loop it under. Give it a firm pull, go around the bone, and same thing. And we're just going to tie it off here. Flip it over, make sure they're nice and evenly spaced, and there we have it. All right, so the next step is seasoning it, and today I have the Holy Gospel from the Meat Church Barbecue Company. And when it comes to standing rib roast, I usually like to use a beef-centric rub, obviously, and I think that generally speaking, steak rubs go really well. And I like to apply it really liberally. I want a nice crust, nice salty, peppery crust on the outside. I think that just goes really well with the piece of meat and how it's going to be cut. Because remember, we're gonna cut this in slices, so we're not going to have very much seasoning here. It's all going to be on the outside. So cake it on there. Don't be afraid. And sometimes I'll do this a little bit ahead of time. Get a couple things prepared, let this sweat in a little bit, and then come back and give it another layer, if you will. Just make sure you got a whole bunch on there. All right, so from here, we're gonna go into a roasting rack. Doesn't really matter as long as your roasting rack is going to keep a nice good bit of airflow all the way around it. You don't want this sitting in the pan because then you're going to have a spot on the roast that hasn't gotten some nice browning. So you want good air circulation all the way around it. And at this point, you want to be using an indirect grill setup with your heat deflectors in. And smoke is up to you. Sometimes I'll put a few pieces of cherry wood in there. Other times I'll just let it go normally. Really up to you. But what I usually do is I will cook this for, it's a good while, maybe around 5 hours or so at 225 degrees. And the time doesn't matter so much as the internal temperature. So what you're looking for is a particular internal temperature where you then take it out of the grill and you set it aside and let it rest until that internal temperature stops rising. While it's resting, bring your grill up to a screaming hot temperature, 600 degrees, somewhere around there, and it's going to go back into that for, just enough time to get some color on there. Sometimes I'll actually take my thermopan on the counter, stick it in there, and just watch it. It's going to take about a half hour, 45 minutes for that internal temperature to stop rising. It's not going to rise fast, but you'll notice that it will. And then you're going to, once it really just doesn't move anymore, stick it back in the grill at that high temperature, get some color on there, take it out, rest it again. A lot of resting involved, but don't don't skip those steps. Don't cheat on those. It's really the key to getting that really consistent temperature all the way through from edge to edge. So we're gonna take this out to the grill and get it going 225 degrees. Probably look for an internal temperature around 120, and take it out, rest it. Stick with us, we'll show you the final product. All right, we are out here at the grill, dialed in at about 225 degrees. We're gonna put this on and let it go for a while. We want it to go as slow as it wants to, and we're ultimately gonna look for an internal temperature as the indicator of when we're gonna take it off, however long it takes. From experience though, it usually takes around 4 or 5 hours. For a low, medium rare, which is my preference for this cook, I'm gonna shoot for about 120 degrees internal. If you like a higher medium rare, maybe 130, or something closer to medium would be 140. This would be good points to pull it off depending on your preferences. But we're gonna put this in here, let it roll for a little while, and we'll come back and show you the first resting stage and the sear. Alright, so I just took a quick reading with my thermopen, and we're sitting right at 124 degrees internal temperature, and that'll be just great. It's right about at the 5-hour mark as well, so it's a pretty good rule of thumb that you can use, but again, rely on that temperature gauge and not your timer, okay? So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna take this inside, let it rest for about a half hour or 45 minutes in a neutrally temperatured environment. Not too hot, not too cool, somewhere in your kitchen where maybe some other action's going on. And while it's resting, I'm gonna get this grill up to about 500 or 600 degrees for it to come back in and have its sear portion of the cook. The sear part of the reverse sear, if you will. So I'm going to take this inside and let it rest for a few minutes. We'll be right back, and you can check out the high temperature action. Okay? All right, so we're in here with the standing rib roast resting, and we're letting the temperature come up, carry over naturally as it would while my grill comes up to a higher grill temperature for the sear portion of the cook. If you have a Thermapen Mark IV, one of the great things about this unit is you can just stick it in here and let it go and read out that temperature. The display is going to time out, but that's okay because the Mark IV version of the Thermapen has a motion sensor, and you can just come up and touch it and it'll pop back on. So stick it in there, give it about a half hour, should be good. Okay, so it's been about 45 minutes that our standing rib roast has been sitting here resting. Internal temperature has been steadily rising and finally stopped at about 129 degrees internal. So we got a solid 5-degree carryover on that. Again, it's not going to change very much once we do our sear portion, so that should be about where it's going to stay. About a nice medium rare, high rare, low medium rare. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take it out to the grill. I've got my Kamado Joe, Big Joe up at about 585 degrees or so right now. We're going to stick this back in there just a few minutes, let it get some color on the outside, and take it off and rest it again. Come on outside with us. All right, so we're back out at the grill. We're up to about, it's gotten a little bit hotter since last clip. We're up over 600 right now, so it's not going to take too long in there. Always remember to open these lids carefully at high temperatures and burp it, if you're familiar with that term. But we're going to put this back in for just a few minutes, get some color on there, and rest it again. Okay, so we've been searing this at a high temperature, about 600, 625 degrees or so for, I think it's been about 8 to 10 minutes. Pretty quick again at that high temperature. And we've got some nice color developed here. Our crust is really formed up well. I think it's time to take it off. We're going to take it back inside in a neutral temperature environment and let it rest again, about 30 to 45 minutes, and then we'll get to carving. Okay, we're back inside now, and we've been resting for about 45 minutes or so. Internal temperature hasn't moved at all, which was expected. You'd think that high temperature sear portion of the cook would do something to the internal temperature, but it really just doesn't. There's not enough time in that environment for it to have much of an impact. So what we're going to do here is we're going to get it over the cutting board, cut into it, and see how we did with that nice, even doneness all the way through. So let me. All right, so let's cut into this and see how we did. First thing is I'm going to flip it over back to where I made my knots and just cut these guys. When I pull this twine off, I want to do it carefully because I don't want the string coming off to take off that nice bark I worked so hard to create. And you definitely want to get these off. Make sure you get all of it off, because it's no fun cutting into or biting into a piece of string. All right, so what I'll do is I'm just going to use the bones here as a guide for my knife and just take them right off. That gets set aside for some tasty snacks later on. So far, color looks pretty good. So what we'll do here is let's cut right into the center of it and just see how we did. And I'd say that's pretty darn good. We've got just about the same color right in here as we do right in the center. No bullseye center of, only your medium rares right in here, and then it's all overdone up here. We've got a nice medium rare outer portion here all along. Looks like a success to me. So again, cool thing about using this reverse sear technique is that it's like that on every aspect of this roast. So even those end pieces, if we cut just a little bit off, it's still going to be just the same. Just as same temperature we have here is going to be the same temperature we have here, half to a quarter to a half inch in on the very end. So if you like it medium rare, your whole family likes it medium rare, you're not going to waste any that's gotten overdone. So what we'll do is we'll just make some nice slices here, and put them on our plate, and nice little standing rib roast presentation here. All right, so there you have it. You're pretty much your foolproof holiday standing rib roast. If you follow those directions of the reverse sear, first initial part of the cook being a low temperature portion for a good while. Don't go off the clock, go off of the internal temperature that you're shooting for. A low medium rare, high rare is about where I like it. 120 or so is a good place to pull it off. Today mine came off at 124, ended up carrying over to about 129. Ends up looking just like that, which I think is just perfect. If you like a little bit more done, 130, 140 if you like it medium with just a little bit of pink in there. After the initial low temperature portion, take it off, rest it, and let that internal temperature stop rising. While you're doing that, bring your grill up to a really hot temperature. Put the roast back in once the internal temperature has stopped rising, and just get some color on the outside. Today it was about 625 degrees during the sear portion. Took about 8 to 10 minutes, so really quick. Take it out again, rest it again, about 35-40 minutes or so. Cut into it and enjoy a job well done, because it's going to be just that good looking every time you do it if you follow those directions. Thanks very much for checking out our video today. If you have any questions, see us on the web at www.firesideoutdoorkitchens.com. Feel free to give us a call here at the store if you're in Augusta, stop by. But also follow us on all of our social media channels, Facebook, Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm Chris with Fireside Outdoor Kitchens. Thanks very much.
Fireside, the best grilling shop in town.